Welcome to another episode of Life is About More Than Living. Today's today's episode is entitled Words of Hope for a Bleeding America. A conversation with Phyllis Leavitt. Um, we'll jump right into it after I just make this brief commercial announcement. Uh, Please hit the QR code you see on the screen. Discover more about Alfred More Than a Poet. Discover more about this podcast. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Purchase my book, Split Souls of Transition, online as an audiobook as well as a paperback. It's available on Amazon as well as other places you can purchase paperback books, Barnes and Noble, and so forth. Apple Bookstore as well. Uh, and a lot of this work, this podcast is currently being supported by this my book, Split Souls and Transition. Now, I chose a unique quote for this. It's a quote for this episode, and I say it's unique because it was the quote from a gentleman who lived between 1805 and 1859. But I think the words of this gentleman, Alexis Tocqueville, I believe I pronounced it correctly. It's French, so Alexis, I would just say, once said about America. It says he said, the greatness of America lies not in being more enlightened than any other nation, but rather in her ability to repair her faults. So now, as a nation, there's a lot of fault to be repaired, I believe. We need some words of hope. So let me bring Phyllis on and heavy topic. We have some fun with this. I hope all of us will leave here more inspired and more hopeful and more optimistic from this episode than some of us are in this present time as we live in this current political climate. Hello, Phyllis. Welcome. I did a brief intro off camera. Would love for you to tell people all that you want to tell them about yourself and why you, and we'll dive into why you believe there's hope for our bleeding country as we dive into this for about 30 to 45 minutes. Unless we get
Great.
lost in the sauce, as I say, and we go over an hour. you
Okay.
know.
Yeah. Well, my name is Phyllis Leavitt, and I've been a psychotherapist for 35 years. And I recently wrote a book called America in Therapy, A New Approach to Hope and Healing for a Nation in Crisis. And the whole inspiration for that book was that from years of working with many, many hundreds of people and lots of trauma and the after effects of trauma and family dynamics and what are healthy family dynamics and what are abusive or dysfunctional family dynamics and how do we heal best from the abuses of the past if we've suffered from those things. It seemed really clear to me that everything that I've learned about working with individuals and families applies to nations and large corporations or large groups of people and even our global community of human beings. We can look at it as the family of America. And through that lens, my hope in writing this book was to both point out what the dysfunction is, not from a blaming, shaming point of view, but from sort of like a doctor will say, your appendix is exploding. That's not a judgment. It's we got to do something about it or you're going to die. And my hope is to look at our country through the lens of what isn't working, what's causing so much suffering and pain and divisiveness and violence, from the point of view of what do we need to do to heal. So America is kind of the client in the therapy session, and that's a lot of what I have to talk about.
Okay. Well, again, I say off camera, we're just gonna dive into it. Uh, America in Therapy: A New Approach to Hope and Healing. I have yet to purchase the book. However, the title itself and what I looked over it is very relevant for our time, uh, regardless of your political persuasion. Um, I thank Phyllis for coming on. I've attempted to pronounce her last name several times. I will not do it again. I love Phyllis; it's easy to say and easy to remember. In her bio, though, which you can read, but I'm just gonna read this part here myself directly from her bio. She posed the question: how did we get here, and what can we do to reverse the course? So
Mhm.
let's take a dive into her opinion as to how do we arrive where we're at now, and some things that we individually and collectively can do to change the tide for ourselves, for ourselves, our families, our communities, however she chooses to address that question.
Well, I love the quote that you picked for the show because it really applies to the world of psychology in some of its essence. And that is that we can make the best contribution, we can become our best selves, we can heal our worst wounds. Or when we do that, when we really are willing to heal what's happened to us that has left us with maybe some dysfunctional coping mechanisms, or we're not able to express our full creativity or find the love and relationship that we want, or the kind of employment that is really satisfying to many people, the hindrance really comes in sometimes in their early conditioning. And so I'll go back to that. But what I want to say in reference to your quote is that what I have found, both myself as a client and working with hundreds of people to help them recover from some of the worst effects of the things that they've suffered from other human beings, is that when we have a chance to heal, we automatically want to repair our relationships with other people and with the world around us. I've never worked with anyone who really had a chance to heal what hurt them, who became more unloving or more violent or more hateful or more uncooperative. In fact, I've seen just the opposite. I've seen people who have been terribly hurt, who, when they have a chance to heal from the wounds that they've suffered, really change their relationship with their children, with their partners, with their employees, with their coworkers, with their spiritual communities, and with their larger communities. And so I think the access to what that quote is about, repairing as a country,
Mm,
I think we have to heal our own wounds and look at the places where we've hurt others, because that's exactly what happens on an individual and family level.
okay. Yeah, I think a lot of us can relate to that from the aspect. And it's a journey, not only a journey, it's sometimes a great challenge.
Right.
Uh, I know how I have found myself in times past engaged in heavy debates with individuals about the political spectrum of things. And then find myself pulling back from some. I still find myself engaging at times because it's hard to not, I think, engage because there's that what was applied in a sense to economics, a trickle down effect. There's that trickle down effect I think happens to each one of us. Is if you're online, you see the news. If you're getting the news offline, if you're walking down the street, you're traveling, that heaviness is in the air. And also the lightheartedness in the air, such as when you go to a park and see families gathering, or you go to a show and there's laughter, or you do something like that. However, I've also seen online a snippet of a comedy show where the individual was a mega person, and she took personally the jokes that the comedian were telling to the degree that they had removed her from the comedy club. He
Mhm.
explained that he's telling jokes based off of real life events, and she took it as a personal attack on herself. So she got belligerent and they had to remove her. Um, I wish I had a snippet of that to share here because there's space for that, but I don't. It's just that based on what you shared, some part of that lady had not healed or grown to the place where she could be diehard in her opinion, but not see the lightheartedness of it as it's being presented on that stage by that comedian. I guess the old adage is you can laugh at your own self. I
Right.
know I personally struggle with that myself a lot.
Mhm.
Um, but that's just one example when I've seen online. Uh,
Well, I think one of the things that we really have suffered greatly from, especially in more recent years in this country, and I think probably in many countries around the world and internationally between countries, is that we've lost both the skill and the desire to sit down and listen to another point of view and actually try to work something out. So, in a healthy family, people are never going to always agree. They just won't. That's the nature of being a human being. We have different perspectives, we have different conditioning, we have different beliefs, we have different coping mechanisms, and we have different goals and desires in life. And we all want our own to be respected and heard and listened to and supported. But so does the other person who's on the other side of the aisle, or who has a different point of view and has a different need from our own. And one of the things that really good family therapy fosters is that deep, compassionate listening to an alternative point of view. And in that process, to take responsibility. If I'm not listening to you with an open mind, I don't have to agree with you. I may never agree with you. But if I'm not listening to you with an open mind and an open heart and a willingness to come to some place in the middle between us, then how can I expect you to do that? And one of the things that really good psychology fosters is the skills and the ability to do that, and to understand beneath our differences, way beneath, our different beliefs and coping mechanisms and agendas, we all really want the same thing. We all really want love. We all really want to feel safe. We all want to be provided for. We all want to have a sense of being valued and belong to something that is safe and caring. And it's through that deep listening that that can be achieved. And we don't do it perfectly, but we just keep trying in a healthy family environment. And that's one of the things that I really hope and pray that we can begin to turn around and bring to our country, that we start listening to each other's needs, to each other's pain, to each other's purpose in this world.
Okay. And you touched upon several things that I'm personally dealing with right now for my own personal well-being and things of that sort is all I would say for right now. Uh, but so therefore I'm gonna I'm not gonna pivot from that. It's just I don't want to go a little personal in this particular show for that.
Okay.
Outside of how my personally I'm part of a greater community. You are part of a greater community, and in one of my poems I mentioned the unsociable social media aspect of things, and that's where I'm gonna kind of play off what you said in the sense of social media, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, a host of others, even on LinkedIn, which is business for business professionals. There's a lot of stuff there now where our mental health, our overall mental well-being, it's easy for us, in my opinion. I'd like you to go a little bit deeper if you don't mind, to disconnect. We connect to what we see and hear on social media platforms, and it moves something in us. But there's a place where we also disconnect to the good of it, I think, and connect more to the worst of it. Me, honestly, I'm a diehard person. I look at I follow some of the sites that what I call the neutral news sites that highlight some of the worst things happening day to day. And I know it's had a detriment on me. So my conversation, I use myself as an example. So to simply get to what the point I'm trying to say is this: how, what are some suggestions that you may have for those of us who struggle with disconnecting from the negativity of social media as it relates to our perspective of our country, of our communities? Because our country is made up of communities, so really our communities.
Right.
And yeah, so how, what's some way we can navigate some of that stuff? Because at the end of the day, I can watch Donald Trump and snippets of what's happening with him and the mega movement and the other unkindness of ICE and all of that on the screen. But when I go out in the streets and I hear people of color berating other people of color, it affects my mindset because we're still a community and we're still part of America. So how do we kind of judge the reality day to day with what's being fed through social media?
Well, let me just say that it's not easy. I don't think it's easy for any of us. We're
Okay.
inundated with so many impressions and so many um, sort of, sensational blurbs about how horrible people are, or all the things that are terrible that are happening. And
Hmm.
there are terrible things that are happening, terrible, very, that are causing enormous suffering and death to many people.
Hmm.
So it's real. But what I would say is this, that it is really easy to be overwhelmed by it. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's probably the first time in history, because of social media, that we can be inundated with what's going on all over the world at any given moment. And people didn't have to deal with that level of stress and overwhelm, I think, in past cultures. Not that they weren't stressed or overwhelmed by their immediate environment.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what the challenge is, and this is the challenge I face in my own life. How much do I want to know and really be informed about? Because that makes me a responsible human being. I want to know, what's going on to some extent, because I want to be responsible for who I be in the face of it. I don't want to stick my head in the sand, and I don't want to be overwhelmed by it. And so it's really finding a balance, sometimes on a daily or moment by moment basis, between having some sense of what is going on that really needs healing in our country and in our world or in our homes or in our community, and focusing on what I actually can do about it. What is my purpose in all of this? What are my gifts? What are my strengths? What do I have to offer? Um, and I think every one of us has something. And I think one of the things that's happened because of the power of social media is that many people actually feel powerless to do anything at all. I
Mm-hmm.
personally cannot stop a war in another country. I know that. That's not what I can do. What I can do is be a better neighbor. I can be a
Mm-hmm.
better partner to my husband. I can be more open minded to someone who has a different point of view. I can give money to a worthy cause that might help other people who are in need. And I can talk on podcasts about the importance of mental health in actually saving ourselves from ourselves. And that's the reason why I wrote my book, because I really believe it would be addressing our mental health that is the biggest missing piece from the conversation, the political conversations, and the negativity that so many of us are suffering from. So the point is, what can I do? And for one person, it may be I can focus on my parenting. For another person, I could be a more affirming and supportive boss in my office. For another person, it could be I'm going to go try to save the whales. No matter what scale of influence a person has, it all matters. It really all matters. And I can share this from my own personal experience. And you've probably, and many of your listeners have probably had this experience too. What it's like to go into a store, for instance, and have the checkout person be super friendly. How was your day? How's it going? It feels good. It spreads goodwill. And when each of us spreads goodwill, we take it with us wherever we go to the people around us. And there's a ripple effect, whether we know what it is or not. So, whatever anybody can do to add to brotherly love, to cooperation, to understanding, to open mindedness, to caring, to generosity matters. And I think in this world of overwhelming social media, we have to find our own balance between being informed and being proactive in the ways that are right for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something you mentioned, I agree with that 100%. And it's a challenge for myself because temptation, even they have to get the phone up, like, don't do it. We're in the middle of a good topic here. You know what blinks on the screen. Um, and on my current employment situation, not saying the situation, my current place of employment, I have been there almost a week now and had no plans of ever going back into retail. And I currently work for one of the world's largest retailers. However, it's the first time in my retail career when I go in the morning and when I leave in the afternoon, there's a positive energy going in and a positive energy coming out from the
Wow.
people I work with. Yes, they cater to a certain level of clientele, the place where I work at. It's just I heard about it from other people. Now I've experienced it. Now I haven't, and not to say that they're perfect. And
Right.
I've heard some of the conversations in the break room at a distance and yada yada. But when it comes to the interactions of us as employees, and yes, the new people stand out. And it was like I was probably one of the largest hiring groups they've had recently, like 6 people, I'd say, at one time. So we stand out. I can only speak for myself. My job is very centralized, and so just the energy back and forth, uh, and it's that upbeat energy, and I knew I was told going into it because where I work at is a very demanding section. There's a different level than I was expecting. Wow, the workload here, and at my age, this, and but just that thing. Um, and yeah, I've also been warned. We know certain customers can come in, yada yada. Everybody's not in that same space, but the energy of the employees, my coworkers, that plays back to what you're saying. It makes. I'm in a place of I'm rambling now because I'm still in awe that after all these years I'm finally in a space where people actually work together without being told on my
Mm.
team are not made to be done to do something. They're like, yeah, you got a question? Yeah, here's my question. Yeah, like I said the other day, I told my wife about it. I dropped the $18 tray of eggs. I work in one of the warehouse clubs, so they're like I can name the particular one though. So the larger containers, and I'm like, and you're like, yeah, man, first few days I've done this, and my coworker was like, oh, that's nothing. You can drop more than that before it's all over. Get some towels, we clean it up. There
Right.
wasn't we would have lost this money in the store, and we be careful next time, like I've heard in times past. It's like it's nothing. Clean it up. We move on. Things happen. Because it's all about being positive, knowing that things will happen instead of being negative. It's going to happen, and there's punishment associated with
Right. And what you're describing is exactly what we could create as a country if we
it.
wanted. There's absolutely no reason why the beautiful environment that is created at your workspace or that many people are creating in their workspaces or in their homes or in their schools or in their churches or in their communities, there's no reason except we've somehow been convinced that we somehow have to fight an enemy, that we have to get up our defenses and protect ourselves, when the ways that we're protecting ourselves are actually causing the pain that we're suffering.
Mm.
So that's a beautiful example of what's possible. And it really is possible. It's not Pollyanna thinking. It's all depends on a person's motivation, what they're exposed to as their conditioning, the role models that they get to experience for better or for worse, and hopefully for better. And
Mm-hmm.
my hope is that we pick that up and we take that to national conversation and to our country and to the world. And again, for some people it sounds like Pollyanna thinking, but it really isn't. It's just really not the big conversations that you see splashed all over the news and social media. Um, but it is absolutely possible because many people are experiencing it in their own lives. And one of the things that I want to add about social media is that I think, unfortunately, it really misrepresents the American people and a lot of what's going on in the world. There are wonderful people in this
Mm-hmm.
country doing amazing, generous, kind, neighborly, non-prejudiced, things for other people on a small and large scale, and they don't hit the top of the news, and so they're not part of the collective role model for many people, but they're there.
Yeah, because um, bad news always sells better than good news,
Right.
and it'll continue to do so. Every now and then, the snippets of what you said will shine through. Um, Different people doing different acts of kindness, especially during this time of the year. Uh, and hopefully, this time of the year, Thanksgiving, moving into Christmas, moving into New Year's, which is also a very stressful period for people. Uh, there'll be more of that highlighted on social media
Hmm.
as well, or at least more positive thinking and challenge input, but also off of social media. Off of social media. Again, I mentioned my place of employment in an indirect way. As it's, I don't want to overly simplify this thing, but as the old saying goes, a smile is an easy thing to give. Um, Perhaps helping a stranger a little
Right.
bit. Uh, I know I have found myself occasionally opening a door for someone traditionally, and then I was scoffed at, and then
Mm.
others to be like, "Oh, thank you." Uh, I've had people do things for me, and I'm like, "Why'd you do that?" And then I had to realize I actually needed that act of kindness for that moment to remind me of my humanity. And I think I'm glad that word came to my mind. Collectively, we are still a part of the human experience and the human experiment. I would say
Right.
experiment in the context that as long as we have been functioning beings on this planet, it's always been one time of turmoil or another. I've had people want to focus on we're in the worst of times and this is America and it's going down the toilet and things are XYZ. But this also could be, and I can't avoid using this quote lately, this is also going to be the best of times as a
Hmm.
country,
Hmm.
based on what you just said, because those small acts of kindness that are not highlighted by on social media, are not highlighted by through the regular media, not highlighted wherever you see it, except for doing Christmas and Thanksgiving, where we're also more loving and more concerned about people, and then we forget the other 363 days of the year
Yeah.
because of the influx of so much information. And I'm not just blaming on information. I, I have to take personal responsibility myself, online as well as offline.
Right.
I too contribute to this negativity. I too contribute to some of this. Uh, in this particular topic, as I said to you off camera, I'm not a fan. I love talking politics off camera, and I love going there and that arena. However, on camera, I'm like, yeah, it can get murky. But when it comes down to words of hope, it needs to the other side needs to be brought out. That's why I
Right.
wanted you on the show as well. Bring out the other side, that
And
part of our humanity.
absolutely. And it's the same, really, it's very similar to a medical model. You have to identify what's wrong. What is the disease you're suffering from? Where did that bone get broken? What happened in that accident? Or what germ were you exposed to? If we're going to find the cure. And so,
Mhm.
one of the beauties of the contribution of psychology to the world situation today is it doesn't make pain wrong. Pain is a sign that healing is needed. And so when
Mm,
we look at the pain that's going on in our country, it's a sign that healing is needed rather than us taking it as just who to blame. Yes, we need to hold ourselves and other people accountable if it's from the point of view of how can we heal? What can we do better? How can we shift courses? What is needed here that isn't being given that's causing so much distress or violence or extremes of partisanship? um, what and that's the whole point of psychology, is looking for the causes so that you can find the answer. And that's really why I think our mental health is so missing from the political discourse of many people
mhm,
today, because it's all about a struggle about who's right and who's wrong and who's going to win and who's going to lose and how can I beat you at this game, rather than how can we all win. Because,
mm,
for instance, when a couple comes to therapy or a family comes to therapy or even an individual, you're looking for the win-win. You're looking for how can we all have relationships that are satisfying, that are safe, in which we feel valued, in which we feel cared for, and in which we can give that to the people around us. Because, one of the things that I say in my book, and I've said it a million times, is there's only one thing that can make us safe. It's not weapons. It's not our whole defense structure. It's safe people. Safe people are what make us safe. So, how do we become those safe people? And how do we foster the tools and the skills and the healing needed to make more and more of us safe for each other? Because a safe person isn't going to pick up a gun and shoot you.
yeah. That's one of the first things I noticed about the neighborhood. currently that we moved into. Uh, and as we were exploring this neighborhood, I'm like, there's kids riding bicycles. Sure, they get their cell phones in their hand. There's kids that are fishing, riding reels going fishing. The little fishing pond I was told is in the neighborhood somewhere. I'm like, I haven't seen that forever. I know it exists, but I haven't seen it personally in forever. That there are people just going about their business, not just walking dogs and out with the walking. There's family engagements out here when the weather's nicer. Right now, had a nasty rainy day here in Carolina, and possibly gonna get our first snow on Friday. But it's just that thing going back to the mental health. I guess the mental health of this community, the overall mindset of this community. Uh, that safe space where you can be out jogging at 5 a.m. in the morning,
Right.
and not just because we have two police officers living in the neighborhood. I'm sure that might contribute some to it, but overall, people in general just going about their daily routine.
Right.
Not them. So I think uh, I don't know if I'm being off point saying the mental health of this community overall is fairly good because of human interactions of
Great.
individuals around. Uh, like go back to my job like yesterday, and I ain't gonna dwell on talking about it that much. I normally would. Oh, I would talk about my book a lot. Uh, the coworkers saw me in the cooler, and they hit the button, open the cooler door,
Oh no.
and they were like, "Are you okay? Everything going all right? You didn't lock yourself in. We wish they would relabel these buttons so you could read them better, see what was up and down as far as opening the cooler door." And I'm like, people are actually that conscious of each other here. It
Right.
was like three of them standing outside the door. And I brought it back into what you're saying, the overall well-being in the workplace in the mental community. Uh, I want to go personal, but I'm gonna try not to because of the out of respect for what's currently happening on the home front. Outside of this is a process, and the pain. I think you mentioned the word pain before. There's a pain. Pain is connected to the healing process.
Right.
Don't like it, don't want it. Nobody wants to suffer. Nobody wants to hurt. Nobody
Right.
wants to be causing hurt or feeling that they're a recipient of hurt. None of
Right.
us with a healthy, functioning brain, mind, spirit wants that.
Right.
But pain is still there. Uh,
Well, we can
and I
either
was,
try to numb ourselves out to it or blame somebody for it, or we can actually try to listen to what it's telling us and try to heal that. So if you have pain in your human relations, let's just say you don't feel loved or you don't feel accepted or you don't feel like people are listening to you or care
mhm,
about your point of view, that's painful. Those are painful kinds of human relations that are really difficult to deal with. So, what's the answer? There's no one size fits all, there's
mhm,
no immediate fix, but it might be, am I being attracted to people who actually aren't good for me? Am I somehow drawn through my own unhealed wounds to
mhm,
recreate what I've experienced in my past? Maybe that's what my childhood was like, and I find myself still wanting to get love from people who can't love me. Or maybe I get angry too quickly and I push people away. Can I work on my anger? Or I get depressed and I isolate and I actually wall people out. Can I work on the source of my depression so that I'm better able to be a healthy participant in the relationships that I have? And
mhm,
if I'm in a really bad relationship, is it possible for me to leave it and find safety somewhere else? So there's always something that we can focus on, in our own being, in our own healing process, our own behavior, that is a way to go. And it
yeah.
won't necessarily be an immediate cure, but it's a path.
Mhm. Yeah, that translates again to the greater scheme of things, our local community, family, community, towns, cities, workplaces of employment. And I'm going to mention now, which I should have mentioned earlier, feel free to leave comments in the comment section, like one YouTuber did. Uh, and Phyllis should be able to see them on her screen. If she can't see them, then I will read the comments out. According, or I might see them on my side. This is kind of new to me on this side. But
I
someone
can't.
typed in A. Okay,
Yeah.
she can't see it. Well, anyway, someone typed in the comment AGHH, which I had to look up because I'm not AME. I'm not tuned in, but it's that simply meant that is AGHH is an exclamation of used to express frustration or annoyance. Like say, ugh. Uh, that's in the early beginnings where we took the deep dive into the other side of the healing process. Someone went like, ugh, in the comment section. And they stayed with us, I believe, through this podcast because here we are. And I still have a number of people hanging in here. We've had like 14 people up here so far. Can you
Great.
still hear me? So if you leave your comments in the box on my side, I will gladly share them from YouTube um, for discussion and commentary more deeply. But I will say this: I didn't know bringing you on, Phyllis, that we would go more into the personal side of things and therapy and counseling and things of that sort. Again, this is my shows are unrehearsed, unscripted. However, at the end of the day, that's what community is all about. Individuals, because individuals will make families to make a community, and one person at a time can bring some change.
That's right.
Uh, and now for the other part of the other infomercial. This infomercial is for Phyllis herself. This infomercial is connected to the text and the text of the show. Her book is there. You can find it on Amazon. There's a direct link to it on Amazon. America in Therapy: A New Hope, New Approach to Hope and Healing for a Nation in Crisis. This I make it very easy. You can find her book. Just go to Amazon. If you're not Amazonian, to find her book elsewhere. But the direct link to her book is on Amazon. Her website is also listed there. Um, phyllisleavitt.com, America in Therapy. I make it very easy, again, as I say, for people that come on my show to have all the links to find them and follow up. This show is not about me fixing you or you fixing me. This show is for information, education, inspiration, uh, a whole bunch of other things that I personally cannot do myself. A lot of times I come on this show, I'm dragging my feet. I'm in a certain space myself, and this show actually becomes therapy for me in
Mm,
many aspects. Um, I say all that because the very name of the show, Life is About More Than Living. The day I got ready, around the time period I was investigating changing the title of this podcast, I had an encounter with someone who said, don't change it. Because so many of us struggle with seeing that life is about more than making a living, eking
right.
out a living, trying to navigate relationships. Life is so much more than all those things that challenge us. So that leave the title alone because it is about all those things and much more. And being able to bring on guests since I think February or March in this format has touched a lot of people. Uh, we're gonna wrap this thing up because this week I'm doing back to back. Another one tomorrow. Not back to back the same day. I'm gonna get ready to wrap it up. Let's say this and let Phyllis close this out where final thoughts unless I get lost in the sauce again. She said something. I'm like, let's talk a little bit more, which I do sometimes. Um, this is a YouTube version of Life is About More Than Living. It is streaming to Facebook. The audio version will be on Spotify, Apple, and where you listen to the audio version of this show within the next hour of us closing it out. Those who like audio, I ask you, my audience, to share this show to get more subscribers to the show. My guest tomorrow, I'm gonna highlight. It's a young man. He's gonna be he might be a tearjerker in a way.
Mhm.
Uh, his part of his quote is autism doesn't define me.
Mm.
He has thousands of followers as a teenage podcaster,
Wow.
and that is one sentence of his quote, the personal quote.
Beautiful.
And so we're gonna go deep on that side again, as far as mental health, as far as autism. Actually, I'm gonna just share the whole quote. He's he. I'm gonna share the actual quote. I played off of it. Excuse me. actual quote is, "I have autism, but I am not broken. I do not need to be fixed." That's his actual quote. Let me my parody of it. I bring that into play here because America is not broken. It doesn't really need to be fixed, in my opinion. What America needs is us being more interactive, learning compassion, which is hard,
Hmm.
learning compromise, which is definitely hard for me because I'm the true zodiac sign of Virgo. It's hard for me to compromise for those pleasing different things. Um, but healing is possible. There's some suggestions in Phyllis's book how we can go about that. I know
Right.
I'm eventually going to get that book, but for today, I can replay what she shared. Uh, Now, enough about all that, those things which are important. If there's one thing that you could say in relation to our personal well-being, how it impacts our greater community, in closing, please share.
Yeah. I mean, I've sort of said it, but I would just say everything that a person can do to heal their own wounds and make amends for the ways that they've maybe not been so great in relationship themselves, which is most of us, you know, most of us have been hurt and inadvertently perhaps hurt other people or been absent or, in some ways neglectful or unkind. And that's just the human condition. And instead of feeling
Mm,
shame about it, let's own our stuff, heal our wounds, repair our relationships, and spread our gifts and our strengths into the world around us, no matter how big or small we think our sphere of influence is, because we need each other. We need each other to survive and thrive here.
Thank you, Phyllis, for that. And this, my dear people, has been another episode of Life is About More Than Living, a podcast. I want to thank Phyllis for being patient when I looked at the information this morning. She requested to be on the show about 4 months ago. Here we are.
Thank you so much.
I will definitely have you back. What you brought today, I think we needed to be touched upon again, especially when we move into the new year. I
Great.
will be miss those, and you'll be. Yeah, I'll have you back. I'm not going to deeper than that. Some things I need to go into detail. I don't know if a guest. Um, and perhaps do a part two of this because the response was so crazy today. It was like 14 people on YouTube popped up today for at least 2 minutes. Uh, so yeah, purchase our book, America in Therapy: A New Approach to Hope and Healing for a Nation in Crisis. Y'all, and Phyllis, I'm gonna take your camera. We have a few words off camera, and that's how it's gonna go. And I don't
Thank
mind saying it on camera. I'm gonna take it off camera because y'all know we can't talk forever.
you.
I know those that know me, I know I could. I could. I will go on.
Thank you.
Anyway, thank you for coming up here, and I'll see you in a little bit.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
All right. You're welcome.